I've talked about Dr. John Gottman in my videos before, but I'm going to paraphrase him again. He said something along the lines of, if you have problems in your relationship, and if you were in a relationship with someone else, you wouldn't be having these problems because you would be having a different set of problems. I love this quote because it goes to say that the problems in your relationship do not exist because of you. They do not exist because of your partner. They exist because you guys have personality differences. And when you guys come together, your personality differences will create a unique dynamic, like a unique chemical reaction that will cause a unique set of problems, and then you guys will clash because of this. Even if you weren't with your partner and their particular set of personality differences, even if you were with someone else, they would have their own set of personality differences, and you would be creating a different dynamic and a different chemical reaction with them, and you would be clashing with them in a different way. If you haven't watched my other videos, make sure you do so. They are a ball. But if you have seen my other videos, you've heard me talk about how my ISTP husband and I tend to clash. Sometimes I think he's too insensitive, too outgoing, super stubborn, and then he could say about me that I am too sensitive, too uptight, unrealistic. But if I were with someone who had the same personality type as me, who was also an INFJ, we would have our own set of problems. We would both probably have a terrible time navigating the real world because we're both intuitives, and we would both probably always be in emotional turmoil, and we would both probably stay in the house all the time because neither of us would really encourage the other one to get out. Likewise, if my husband were with someone who had the same personality type as him, they'd have their own set of problems. They'd both probably be missing bill payment due dates left and right, probably be super disorganized and just indulging in all of life's pleasures but neglecting all of their responsibilities. Sustainable relationships do not exist because of a lack of conflict. They exist because of the couple's ability to navigate their conflicts. In my last video, I talked about troubles that INFJs and ISTPs will have in a relationship together. Today's video is going to kind of be along the same lines, but today's video will cover what the INFJ needs from the ISTP based on the ISTP's personality type. If I were making a video about what the INFJ needs from the ENFP, I would not need to be including points like we need romance because the ENFP is already a pretty romantic type. If I were making a video about what the INFJ needs from the ISTJ, I would not need to be including points like we need you to be organized because the ISTJ is probably the most organized of all the personality types. But today's video is going to be addressing the ISTP and what we need from you based on your personality type. This video can be for the ISTPs who are wondering what they can do to improve their relationship with their INFJ, or it can be for the ISTP who is considering getting into a relationship with an INFJ and wondering how that's going to go. At some point, I may make a video about the reverse, what the ISTP needs from the INFJ, and maybe when that time comes, my husband can help me out with it. But here goes. Let's talk about what the INFJ needs from the ISTP. Number 1, romance. INFJs are hopeless romantics. INFJs have dominant introverted intuition, so they have idealizations of how things ought to be, and then we have secondary extroverted feeling, so we really care about the emotions of others. I think arguably that with these two cognitive functions coming in first and second on our cognitive stack, INFJs are arguably the most romantic of all the types. INFJs can just be over the top, sweet with those that they love. And not only do INFJs love to display affection, they love to have that affection reciprocated. But ISTPs, you guys have dominant introverted thinking, so you guys are always just thinking about logic and problem solving, and extroverted feeling is fourth on your cognitive stack. So we know it's within your desires to have or to be able to create a feel-good environment, but where your problem solving skills are mostly directed towards your secondary cognitive function, your extroverted sensing, you guys will be good at doing physical things, fixing cars, building things, troubleshooting machines, anything physical, but then you have trouble using that introverted thinking, that problem solving, and turning it inward and finding solutions for matters of the heart. You have a hard time coming up with ideas on how to express your emotions, in your affection towards the INFJ. You feel like you want to give flowers and you want to go on the movie date, but you also feel like that's so played out and it's nothing special, and you feel like you want to reach out to the INFJ and hold them and look deep into their eyes and tell them how much you love them, but then you feel like that's so corny and you can't bring yourself to do it, and then you realize you're pretty short on words to express those gushy sentimental emotions anyway. So then you contemplate and you contemplate and you contemplate on this romance thing. All the while, the INFJ is just, sitting over here, starved of affection. We understand it feels unnatural, but make it a goal to do at least one romantic gesture a day. If it's already a routine to give each other a quick kiss before you guys both head out the door for work in the mornings, then that doesn't count. I mean, do one out of the ordinary romantic gesture a day, even if it's something small. Today you can say something like, I don't know what it is, but you look extra pretty today. And then tomorrow you can, just like reach out and give them a kiss as they're coming down the hallway. And then the day after you can bring them a flower from outside as you're, coming into the house. It could be a weed and the INFJ will be gushing over it. We get that you ISTPs are not necessarily creative, and you fret that if you start doing these little romantic gestures that your INFJ will continue to expect them, and you won't be able to continue to generate ideas, or you won't be able to stay committed. But don't worry so much about that. Just do it when you remember to do it, and then whenever you do remember to do it, make sure that you actually do it, and don't come up with an excuse for yourself to not do it, like I'm in the middle of something right now, or they look like they're in the middle of something right now, or psych yourself out like, nah, it's too cheesy, I can't do it, I'm not gonna do it. Just do it. Doing something cheesy and executing it poorly is better than doing nothing at all. And given how romantic INFJs are, it is very unlikely that they are going to find it cheesy. They will be wanting to eat up all that cheese. I do also have to say that sometimes your INFJ will not have as grand of a reaction as you might anticipate. Like, yes, we get it. You have to think about what it is that you want to do to display, that little gesture of affection, and then you really have to like bring yourself to do it. And then whenever you do it, like, you reach out and you kiss your INFJ as they're coming down the hallway and passing you, and then they just continue to like walk past you. They don't even like acknowledge you. They won't even say, oh, that was sweet, and you're just like, I did all that for what? But don't expect a big reaction from the INFJ every single time, especially if, it was a considerably small gesture. ISTPs, we have all been in a situation where somebody did something small for us and we didn't act, overtly appreciative of it, and we might have forgotten to even say a simple like thank you. And it's the same with INFJs. Like, they will appreciate the gesture even if they don't, have like a really grand reaction about it. But don't use that as an excuse to not start, or use it as an excuse to stop doing the little romantic gestures. You got to keep doing it. And also remember, INFJs being introverted, intuition dominant, they're always wanting to feel like life is in motion, like life is moving, like they're progressing towards something. They don't like to feel like life is stagnant. The moment they stop and they feel like life is monotonous, monotonous, or, there's like no progress being made and life is at a standstill, they're gonna freak out a little bit and they're gonna be like, oh my gosh, what am I doing with my life? And then the same goes with their relationships. I'm not saying that the INFJ is going to leave you for someone new just for the sake of having something new, but they always want to feel like your relationship is improving and that things are getting better and better, not that the relationship is just at a standstill. And you can help them to feel like things are good and things are still moving and improving by continuing to display those little gestures of affection and keeping the love new. It will make the INFJ feel so good and so happy, and whenever the INFJ feels good, they will make sure that you feel good. Number 2, conversation and connection. The INFJ's love language is definitely quality time and connecting through conversation. INFJs cannot stand small talk. We crave conversation because conversation is our way of connecting with you and tapping into your inner world and your dreams and your desires. That kind of stuff makes us feel so full and so satisfied. You know those songs about wanting love, just wanting love and not wanting money? That's the INFJ. There is nothing that you can give us that would be worth more than to just let us connect with you deeply and emotionally and spiritually. We know that ISTPs, where you guys are introverted, intuition dominant, and you're always just thinking about the logic, and you have secondary extroverted sensing, so you're just always thinking about concrete matters. We know it can be difficult to find that magical land where INFJs like to live, where we're talking about all that fruity stuff. We know that you ISTPs don't really get it, and you don't have much to say. You don't really see why we're so in our heads about that kind of stuff. But if you want to have a connection with your INFJ, through conversation is where you're going to get that connection. So just Google, conversation topics for couples or something like that, and then just talk about whatever you find. Just don't tell them that you Googled it. INFJs prefer to talk about deep, meaningful things, but if you don't understand that, or if you're not good at that, then really you can talk about anything. You can talk about traveling, you can talk about your hobbies, you can talk about your childhood and your memories, you can talk about your family, you can really talk about anything, and I'm sure that the INFJ would be just as happy to talk about all of that with you. They just want to be able to know you deeply and connect with you deeply. Number 3, reliability. If there's something that really makes INFJs mad, it's people doing stuff that they're not supposed to be doing, or people not doing stuff that they are supposed to be doing. INFJs are introverted, intuition dominant, and this means that we like to see the bigger picture. We see the world like a big picture, and we see events in life like a pattern. We believe that everything has a meaning that is contributing towards the bigger picture, and we want harmony in that bigger picture. Think about if you had like a really beautiful painting of like a mountain scene and rocky cliffs and snow-covered mountain peaks and the sun rising from behind the mountains with splashes of like purple and orange and gold in the sky, and dewy tree leaves in a rushing stream that's reflecting the fiery sky. And then all of a sudden there's this like random thing in the corner of the picture, like a pogo stick or like a tractor, and it's contributing nothing to the overall theme of this picture. That really irks the INFJ. This is what introverted intuition looks like, looking for the meaning of everything or the significance of everything with respect to the bigger picture. INFJs love people, but they also believe that everybody should be contributing to the overall harmony of the world. Likewise, if you are in a relationship with an INFJ, they expect that you should be contributing something to your relationship. And I mean, that's not an unrealistic expectation, right? That should be a given. Like, you should be contributing romance to your relationship, or if you guys are married, you should be contributing towards the responsibilities of your household. But if you're not contributing to the greater good, or the greater purpose, the INFJ will get really irked with you. It will feel like you're that pogo stick or that tractor that is kind of an eyesore and you're just there for no reason. And if you cross the INFJ in the wrong way, they're going to let you know that through their fiery INFJ rage. And it's not going to be pretty. I talked in my last video about how sometimes INFJs can kind of have these unrealistic expectations, like they have their introverted intuition and they believe that things should go a particular way, and then they get mad whenever things don't go that way. And yes, you INFJs listening to this, your personal introverted intuition, your personal vision, your personal expectations cannot be the end all be all of how things should be. People, and even people who are in a relationship with you who have a commitment to you, don't have to do the things that you expect of them. Don't go into this mode that we INFJs tend to get into, where we think that people should be on board with our personal vision and our personal introverted intuition. They are their own person and they should be able to live their life how they want to. And yes, INFJs do have the capacity to be toxic because of this tendency, but not all INFJs are toxic just because they have expectations. It is not toxic to expect people in a relationship to reciprocate love. It is not toxic to expect mutual respect. It is not toxic to expect your partner to uphold their end of the relationship and their responsibilities. So for you ISTPs listening to this, know that even though the INFJ gets into these idealizations, they can still have reasonable expectations. They can still have good intentions, and you do still need to take the time to listen to them and hear them out on matters. And don't just write them off as unrealistic or unreasonable. Usually INFJs, because they have that tertiary introverted thinking, they're pretty logical too, and they have really good ideas and good reasons behind why they want what they want. Because the INFJ knows that they're pretty logical, if you're doing something illogical, like you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing and you're not being a reliable person, not only will this really anger the INFJ, but they will be really hurt by it. And INFJs, again, with their strong introverted intuition, believe that everything is supposed to be purposeful. So whenever they get let down, they take disappointment harder than any other personality type. So if you're just lingering around and doing nothing and contributing nothing, the INFJ will really resent you and look at you like you're an eyesore in their beautiful picture. And if you cannot be a reliable person for the INFJ and you don't care about whether or not you're disappointing them, and you don't care about supporting them and helping them to reach their dreams, then do them a favor and don't get involved with them at all. They thrive on people caring about the same things that they care about. So if you're not going to care about what your INFJ cares about, then just don't be with them. Which brings me to my next point. INFJs need your loyalty and integrity. INFJs love very deeply and very intensely. They will want to just make the world golden for you until the end of time. They will go to any extent for their loved ones. And this will oftentimes get the INFJ taken advantage of. Ask any INFJ and I will guarantee with 100% certainty that every INFJ will say that they've been in a situation where they were far too loyal and far too kind for far too long to someone who did not deserve it, and they ended up getting taken advantage of. And you might say to yourself, I love my INFJ. I would never do that to them. But think about if you had a partner who was like filthy rich, right? And they loved you and they wanted to shower you with gifts with all that money that they have. Tell me that eventually you wouldn't start to maybe take their credit card out and buying a few things for yourself, without their permission, because after all, they are so rich, right? Like, whatever you spent wouldn't even make a dent in their bank account. And tell me that you wouldn't be telling yourself that, you're just gonna buy yourself this thing that you've been waiting for so long to get for yourself. And after all, your partner loves you so much and they're so filthy rich and they would want you to have this thing, right? Well, in the same way, INFJs are very rich with love. They have an unlimited amount of love to give, and it is absolutely just overflowing. So people will start to feel about the INFJ that, even if I do this thing that I know my INFJ doesn't like, they won't leave me because of it, because they just love me too much. So I will do things like I'll slack on my responsibilities, I'll go out and stay out for longer than what we agreed on, I'll do things like not call them, I'll do things like hang out with these people that my INFJ doesn't trust. When you are being loved by someone who is overflowing with love, it's easy to tell yourself that it's okay to slip up. It's easy to lose your integrity and do things that you're not supposed to be doing, because you know that you'll probably have no consequences other than just a very pouty INFJ. But when you do this to the INFJ, it hurts them because they know how much they love you and they simply can't just toss you because they know how much they love you. And so they know that they can't hate you, so then they in turn hate themselves. They will hate themselves for loving you so much and then just allowing you to take advantage of them. And it's so sad whenever someone who has such a pure love gets that love abused and used and wasted. Don't do that to the INFJ. The INFJ needs your loyalty and your integrity. So do the right thing and have integrity even when your INFJ is not looking. They love you so much and they are relying on you to do the right thing. Number 5, help. This is different from my previous point when I said INFJs need a reliable partner. This point relates to how INFJs have inferior extroverted sensing. Extroverted sensing is the INFJ's 4th and inferior cognitive function. So this means that they have a hard time functioning in the physical world. I could give probably a million examples of this, but some of the most common problems that INFJs have because of their inferior extroverted sensing is stuff like their car breaks down and they don't know what's wrong with it, so they take it into the shop and then they just let the mechanics do whatever the mechanics want to do and rack up that repair bill. Or whenever they go to purchase something, they're not good at looking at the specs whenever they're comparing different products, and so they'll end up with a really poor product. Or the INFJ will be so focused on what it is that they need to do or where it is that they need to go that they will overlook details in the present moment, and it will cause them trouble later on. So like they'll be so in a rush to go somewhere that they leave the house without grabbing their phone or without grabbing their wallet, or they'll do what I've done a million times and lock themselves out of their house or lock themselves out of their car. I love INFJs, but sometimes we can be hopeless and helpless. But ISTPs, we really admire about you guys that you guys have a pretty good head on your shoulders and you guys can really provide real life solutions for us. Like repairing cars is easy for you guys, and looking at the specs of products is easy for you guys. Navigating the real world is easy for you guys. Even though it comes naturally for you, this is something that you are definitely going to have to step up if you are in a relationship with an INFJ, because we really need that help, and I apologize in advance. Number 6, reality checks. Another thing about being introverted intuition dominant and extroverted sensing inferior is INFJs can get out of touch with reality. Yes, I said all that stuff earlier about INFJs can be pretty logical and can be pretty good problem solvers because we do have that tertiary introverted thinking. But because of the combination of our introverted intuition and then our inferior extroverted sensing, INFJs are known to be the least practical of all the types. In a previous video, I made the analogy that an INFJ will see a target and they will want to shoot it with one arrow in the single straightest path, because INFJs do not like to waste time and they do not like to waste effort. They are always ready for the next goal. They are very goal oriented. They are very decisive and they are very future oriented. But all of this can lead them to miss details that are right in front of them. So when they see that goal and they pull out their arrow and take aim, they're just ready to shoot. They're not taking the time to think about, like, how's the wind going to affect their shooting, if there are any shadows that are being casted that is going to skew their view. They don't take the time to think about that kind of stuff in the present moment, because they are just so focused about the future and getting done what needs to be done. So ISTPs, the INFJ will really need your help in giving them the realistic breakdown of how things are, contrary to what their idealization is. We need you to be the one that brings us back to reality and gives us the flip side of things and tells us that things might not go the way that we expect, and then help us to plan for the scenario in which things don't go the way that we planned. In another previous video, I had talked about how when my husband and I were preparing for our wedding, I was just concerned about the end result. I was just concerned about the decorations, the layout, the schedule, and my husband had to be the realist and say, hey, what if it rains? Because we were having an outdoor wedding. So he had to be the one to remind me to prepare for the rain. And so ISTPs, you guys will have to be the realist in your relationship, and you guys will have to be the one to prepare for the rain. Which brings me to my next point, number 7, adventure. Now, you've heard me talk about how INFJs are idealistic and we are out of touch with reality and we have difficulty navigating the physical world. Well, you will see this cause INFJs to be very sedentary people. When INFJs mean business, they mean business. Their introverted intuition will get them up and running and working towards their goal at full speed ahead. But because of their inferior extroverted sensing, they will oftentimes be really afraid to start on projects because they're afraid of what it is that they're missing or what it is that they don't know. They like to have all information up front before getting started on anything, and they don't like to go into anything blindly because they have this fear that they can't anticipate what might go wrong, and they're not good with improvising solutions. So they will be very sedentary people. They want to preserve their energy. They won't like going out and trying their skills at new things, which probably sounds crazy to you ISTPs because you guys love doing that kind of stuff, right? Like, you guys love trying out your skills, working on projects, getting your hands dirty, and going on adventures. So make it a point to encourage your INFJ to get out a little. Encourage them to go on a hike or to learn how to canoe or learn how to use like a wood saw. Start with things that are low stimulation at first. And, you know, maybe do something that's going to be somewhere where there's not going to be a lot of people around so that they don't have to worry about embarrassing themselves. And, you know, even with your help, whenever you're trying to teach an INFJ like a new physical skill, they're still going to suck. But it's a healthy thing to do. It's a healthy thing to encourage your INFJ to get some external stimuli. Which brings me to my next point, number 8, Consideration of the INFJ's energy level. Yes, it's good for you ISTPs to encourage the INFJ to get out and do things, but know that the INFJ has a completely different energy level than you do. And if you do not respect that, and if you disregard the INFJ's energy level and continuously push them to get out, then you are going to see your INFJ crumble. If you notice that your INFJ has done nothing but stay in their pajamas for like a month, it is perfectly fine and even healthy to say, hey, you want to go bike riding today? But if your INFJ has had a long week at work, even if they didn't mention to you whether it was a good week or a bad week, and you say to the INFJ, hey, let's go bike riding today, and then they say no, and then you persist again, and then they still say no, then just don't push it. Again, their energy level is different than yours. And as an ISTP, your way of decompressing after a long work week might be that you go out and go on a bike ride. But for the INFJ, their way of decompressing might be that they just stay in the house in their pajamas for the whole weekend, shut all the curtains, and just pretend like the stimulation of the outside world doesn't exist. INFJs get overstimulated easily, and they recharge by having time alone to bask in that rich inner world of theirs. So you may not understand that, but it is a very real thing for INFJs. Our inner world is our refuge. Our pajamas and our bed is our refuge. So when we say that we just want to stay home and do nothing, then respect that. We don't need a reason to get out of bed, and we don't need any convincing. We say that that's what we want to do because that is truly what we want to do, and we ask that you don't look down on us for it, and we ask that you don't judge us for it, and we also ask that you don't take it personally. Which brings me to my next point. Number 9, planning ahead. This is a small and petty point, but it will save you a few arguments if you're into that kind of stuff. So you just heard me talk about how INFJs are easily overstimulated, and they value their energy, and they try to preserve their energy. So they appreciate when you can give them a heads up about something that you want to do. So don't just wake up one morning and be like, hey, you want to go skydiving? I mean, that's an extreme example, but you know, it's like you're going to pull the rug right out from underneath them, and they're going to freak out, and they're going to absolutely be against it. So if you want to go skydiving, or if you want to do something, new, or something that's going to require like a lot of like physical exertion, give them a heads up in advance so that they have the time to mentally hype themselves up for it and mentally prepare themselves for it. INFJs need to plan and foresee and anticipate things. So if you ask them to do something with you and they say no, it's probably because they haven't had adequate time to mentally prepare themselves for it. So if you want the INFJ to do something with you, especially if it's something physical, then let them know ahead of time, and don't take it personally if they say no to some of the activities that you propose, especially if it was a last minute plan. And then this brings me to another point, number 10, not taking things personally and just emotionally supporting the INFJ. INFJs are kind of funny. They do things that are kind of whack, but trust me when I say the majority of the time, it is not going to be about you. It's just going to be about us. Like when I said in my previous point that if we say no to the proposal to go bike riding, or we don't want to go out, don't take that personally. It's probably just us. We're just tired. It's not that we don't want to spend time with you. And oftentimes too, you'll see the INFJ like huffing and puffing over something, and you can't tell what it is that they're mad about. And truthfully, sometimes they don't even know what it is that they're mad about. You can go into the kitchen and they could be like pacing back and forth and grumbling like, and you'll be like, are you okay? And they'll suddenly just lash out at you like, why does everyone keep saying that? Yes, you'll be like, but just walk away. If you're daring, you can try to insert a kind word like, I love you, or let me know if you need anything. But then you might just be met with, oh, why don't you just walk away? Don't take it personally. We know you ISTPs are problem solvers and you love us and you don't want to see us upset and you want to try to help us, but sometimes the INFJ knows that it's just us. We're just being unrealistic and we're just being upset over something petty, and we just got to let our emotions bleed out and let the moment pass, and then we can feel better. And sometimes we don't need our problems solved because we know it's just us. We just got to get over it. And oftentimes when this is the case, we project our frustration as irritability. So if you see us being irritable and you see us like out in the rain on our knees crying out to the heavens like, oh God, why? Just sip your tea and just move on. Maybe later you can poke your head into the room and be like, you okay? Need a hug? But otherwise, just move on. When an INFJ is irritable, we are pretty much inconsolable. So just leave us alone. But whenever we're somber, emotionally support us by giving us a hug or a quiet kiss on the forehead and just telling us, you know, everything's gonna be okay. Maybe ask us if like we want to talk about it. Don't do that when we're irritable. Do it whenever we're somber, when we've let out all this steam and we're just, you know, looking deflated and looking flat and looking defeated. And also ISTPs, if you happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time and you get caught in the crossfire of the INFJ's rage and they throw some unkind words at you, just know that they didn't mean it and don't take it personally. Know that it wasn't about you and that they were probably just mad about something else and you just happened to be there, that they just happened to take it out on you. And yes, that's not fair. And yes, for you INFJs listening to this, please do not make your partner your emotional punching bag, because that is toxic and that is abusive. So work on that. But ISTPs, don't try to defend yourself against the INFJ whenever they do this to you. It's not the time. If you walk into the kitchen and, you know, they're just pacing back and forth and grumbling, and you say, are you okay? And then they say, why does everyone keep asking out today? Do not say, why are you yelling at me? And do not say, looks like someone's having a bad day. Just cut yourself from this situation and let the INFJ burn themselves down, and then you can go and pat them on the back later. You don't have to be the one to try to put out their fire. You don't have to be the one to try to extinguish them. You don't have to try to solve their problems. Just support them emotionally. Validate their feelings. Say something like, I'm sorry you're having a bad day, or I'm here if you need anything. Don't take things personally. INFJs are not themselves whenever they are in a bad place. Number 11, be organized. This is another one of those points that is just kind of small and petty, but it'll save you a few arguments. INFJs, because we have that inferior extroverted sensing, we like to be in beautiful surroundings. So, you know, just keep the house clean and organized and pick up after yourself. So this concludes my videos on what the INFJ needs from the ISTP in a relationship. If it was sounding kind of selfish, just remember that this video was about what the INFJ needs from the ISTP. And I know that you ISTPs cannot accommodate this list 100% of the time, but if you are an ISTP who's looking for more ways in which to improve your relationship with your INFJ, hopefully this video kind of pointed you in the right direction. And then if you are an ISTP looking to get into a relationship with an INFJ, hopefully I didn't scare you off, but hopefully this video gave you a better idea of what you might need to anticipate in a relationship with an INFJ and gave you a better idea of if you have what it takes. So let's hang out again next time. Thanks so much for watching this video.